Hello. We're going to look at the what we call the behavior of a graph here. Okay, and the behavior of a graph talks about the physical traits, the things that we see that we can identify um, by knowing a few points and looking at trends here. Okay. Now we've already talked about in a previous video. We've talked about domain, right? But let's go through it one more time. Remember that when we're doing the domain, this is a set of x values, okay, or a set of inputs, right? So the inputs to a function, these are x values. They're what we plug in here. There's two things we said to look for. Are there any fractions? Okay. Are there any square roots? Right? Now, when you look in the function itself, is there a fraction? Yes, there's a fraction. Okay. But will this denominator ever be zero? Okay. No, because it's a three. Okay. There's no way to turn this into a zero, even with this x that's out here. That's not going to turn that into a zero. Okay. So we don't have to worry about that, and we see no radicals. So just by looking at the function, we should be able to say that the domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity, right? Or another way of saying that is all real numbers. Okay. Now, when you look at the graph, what we talked about in a previous video is if you're going to find the domain from the graph, you want to go to the leftmost point. Well, the leftmost point of this graph we can't see, right? Because this is going forever and ever to the left, right? So the leftmost point of this graph is negative infinity, right? And we always use a parenthesis with that. Then we start tracing, okay? And I'm going to trace this entire graph as best I can with my tablet here. And if I ever have to pick this pencil up off of the page, then I'll know there's a break in the domain, all right? But as I trace, whoop, got a little off there. As I trace this graph, I never have to do that, okay? There's no holes, there's no jumps, there's no stoppages, there's no asymptotes. Nothing causes me to actually lift my pencil up off the page and then pick up somewhere else. So because there's no breaks, the rightmost point of this function is positive infinity, which is where this graph quote unquote stops. Okay, so again, start at the leftmost point, trace until you have to pick your pencil off the paper, right? We don't have to do that here. So we see from the graph that the domain is all real numbers. We also see from the function itself that the domain is all real numbers because there was no zero possibility in the denominator of a fraction and there were no radicals.